The day I bought Jaden his car, he didn't say thank you. Not really. He let out a whoop, shouted something into his phone, and tossed me the kind of glance you'd throw to a gas station clerk. No eye contact. No wait. Just a flicker of recognition before he peeled off down the street, tires chirping as if the moment itself needed to be drowned in motion. I stood there holding the spare key in my hand, still warm from the dealership. His mother stood beside me, arms crossed, smiling like this was a shared victory. She leaned into me, kissed my shoulder, and said, "He loves it. He's just overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. That word stuck with me. She always had a way of cushioning his silence with excuses, smoothing the jagged edges of his indifference until they seemed like something soft, something forgivable. But I wasn't looking for a celebration. Just a nod, a glance, one honest thank you. It never came. The car, a used Camry I'd spent weeks fixing up after hours, was gone, and so was he. That was my introduction to fatherhood in this house. Not fatherhood, really. Something adjacent to it. Something colder. I was not the man who raised him. I was the man who funded him. A sponsor, not a father. Jaden never missed a payment. Not for gas, not for insurance, not for anything tied to his independence, because I made sure of that. I kept his account topped up without him asking. I paid the premiums, scheduled the oil changes, rotated the tires, replaced the brake pads. I didn't ask for applause. I just assumed, foolishly, that consistency would build connection. I thought he'd see me, not as a replacement for the man who vanished, but as something real, something earned. But the truth sat quiet in the margins of every day. To him, I was invisible unless something broke. Dinner was the worst of it. He'd sit with one AirPod still in, nodding absently while texting under the table. He'd joke, loud enough for me to hear, that Greg would have bought a Tesla, and laugh like it was nothing, like comparing me to his mother's ex was just a game, a family tradition. My name was always missing from his stories. His friends knew about his real dad, the man who'd send birthday messages once a year and sometimes PayPal him beer money. But me, I was the guy staying with mom, not her husband, not a parent, just a roommate with better credit. I remember coming home one night, hands blistered from drywall work I took on to cover his first semester's deposit, and finding the living room trashed. Shoes everywhere, pizza boxes, soda cans, someone's vape melting into the cushions. Jaden was upstairs in his room with the door closed, bass rumbling the floorboards like a heartbeat. Cleaned it all, bagged the garbage, vacuumed the rug, washed the throw pillows that smelled like smoke. When I brought it up to his mother, gently, not even angry, she blinked like I'd asked her to solve a calculus problem. "They're teenagers," she said. "That's just what boys do." That sentence should have told me everything. Boys, plural, hers and mine. But only one of us was held to any expectation. I began to feel it in small, precise ways. The way Jaden asked her, not me, when he needed something big. "Mom, can I get a new laptop for school? Mom, can you talk to him about the allowance? Mom, can you drive me if he says no?" I was there for the discussions, but never the decisions. My role was to fund, not to weigh in. My signature appeared on every check, but never in the conversation. And when I pushed, when I asked if maybe we should start asking Jaden to contribute, to work part-time, to show some sense of gratitude, she'd go quiet. Not defensive, not combative, just quiet, as if my suggestions were background noise to be tolerated, not listened to. I stopped asking after a while. The silence wasn't worth it. The resentment crept in like a draft you can't locate. Slowly, invisibly, but always present. It was the holidays that broke me in small ways. I bought the gifts, wrapped them, even stayed up to build the desk he'd asked for, the one he never used. He opened everything with the enthusiasm of someone flipping through junk mail. "Cool," he said once. Just that. Cool. He took a photo, posted it online, tagged his real dad with a winking emoji. I know because I saw it. No mention of me. I didn't bring it up. I didn't say a word. What would that make me? Bitter? Petty? I told myself the line all stepfathers tell themselves. He'll come around. Give it time. Love, after all, is patient. But love, when unreciprocated, starts to feel like labor. And I worked for that boy. My back carried the weight of his education, his food, his Wi-Fi, his summer trips. I mowed the lawn while he slept in. I unclogged the bathroom drain while he shouted at strangers on his headset. I fixed the porch steps after he broke them jumping off with his friends, then bought pizza for those same kids when they stayed the night. Jaden didn't just ignore me. He studied me. He watched the limits of my patience and made sport of pushing them. Once, when I grounded him for staying out all night, he laughed. Said, "You think you're my dad or something?" Then he walked past me and slammed the door. His mother said I was too hard on him. That grounding him would just make things worse. That I should be the bigger person. Always the bigger person. That was my role, giant shoulders and no voice. A provider who forgave without apology and paid without question. But I had questions. I just stopped asking them out loud. Because what do you do when the family you've built resents your presence more than they respect your sacrifice? You work harder. You think if you can just outgive the rejection, it'll reverse. You buy nicer things. You pay for better tutors. You book surprise trips. You smile at dinner even when the silence from across the table feels like an accusation. I started to wake up earlier, just to have coffee before the house stirred. I'd sit in the kitchen in silence, watching the steam rise from the mug, trying to remember why I'd done this to myself. Why I married into a family that didn't want to be married to me. Why I handed over pieces of myself to a boy who flinched at the sound of my voice. I once overheard him on the phone with a friend, talking about college plans. Yeah, my dad might help me out. Not that guy Mom married. The real one. I'll ask him. He didn't whisper. He didn't even pause. That wasn't a joke. That was clarity. The truth about being a stepfather is that you're both too much and not enough. You're expected to fill the space, but not to take up space. You're supposed to care, but not expect connection. You're told that love is action, but only your actions count. Theirs are optional. Yours are mandatory. And I kept going. I kept showing up. I told myself it was for his future, even if he never acknowledged the role I played in building it. But every man has a line. Even one who spends years convincing himself that the absence of love is just a delayed arrival, not a permanent vacancy. I didn't know when it would come, but I knew it was coming. Something was going to break. Something always does. It broke in May. Not with a fight. Not with some storm of slammed doors and raised voices. It broke with a sentence. A handful of words spoken without hesitation, without fear, without the decency of regret. I had just gotten home. My hands were still dirty from fixing the leak in our kitchen ceiling. A pipe that had rotted behind the drywall, dripping brown water down into the insulation. I'd spent 4 hours on it, kneeling on the floor, shoulder deep in mold and rot while everyone else was out shopping for outfits for graduation. Jaden needed a new suit. His mother insisted he deserved to look sharp, even if it meant using my card. I didn't argue. I never did. But that day, something told me to come in through the back door. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was instinct. I walked through the kitchen, set my tools down on the counter, and heard him laughing upstairs. Loud, unfiltered, like he owned the house, the air, the story he was telling. "She keeps asking if I'm going to save him a seat," he said, voice echoing through the hallway. I told her, no way. He didn't earn that. Real dads don't buy love. He's just an ATM with a face. Then came the laughter. His friends. The kind of laughter that leaves marks. Not teenage teasing, this was something colder. Older. We *p*nized. I stood there frozen. My heartbeat slowed, but everything else sharpened. The walls felt closer. The ceiling lower. I didn't shout. I didn't burst into the room, demand answers, scream about all the things I'd given. I just turned, walked up the stairs, and opened his door without knocking. He was still holding the phone, still smiling. But the smile died when he saw me. We didn't speak. I reached into my pocket and took back the car keys. He didn't move. I walked to the desk, picked up the debit card I'd given him 2 years earlier, loaded each month without fail, and slid it into my back pocket. Then I turned and walked downstairs. opened my laptop, disabled the card, froze the gas account, revoked access to the shared Spotify and Netflix he always assumed were his. Then I logged into the payment portal and canceled the automatic deposit scheduled for his tuition extension. Each click was a nail. Each confirmation box a closing door. Jaden came down 20 minutes later, still in shock. "Are you serious?" he said. Not angry, confused, like I had broken some unspoken contract. "You're really doing this?" I didn't look at him. "Yes." He stood there, staring, as if waiting for me to crack. I didn't. "You're mad because of a joke?" I closed the laptop and stood up slowly. "No, Jaden. I'm mad because you meant it." He opened his mouth, but I didn't wait to hear more. I walked out the front door, got into my truck, and drove 3 blocks down to a rental unit I'd been holding in secret, just in case. A 1-bedroom apartment above a hardware store. Nothing special. No lake view. No fireplace. No master bath. But it had something our house hadn't in years. Peace. No disrespect echoing down the hall. No silence used as a we*p*n. No guilt twisted into obligation. Just peace. That first night I didn't text his mother. I didn't return her calls. I let the storm swirl without me. She sent messages, then voicemails. "Where are you? Come home so we can talk." Jaden didn't mean it. He's just a kid. But none of those words meant anything anymore. Not after the way she stood in the hallway when I took his keys and said nothing. Not after she let me walk out carrying the weight of years of sacrifice with no protest, no apology. Her silence was its own betrayal. The next morning, Jaden's text started. Long, rambling, furious. He said he looked like a joke. Said his friends laughed when he showed up in a wrinkled shirt because I'd ruined his plans. He didn't ask where the money went. He didn't ask why I'd left. He only asked how I could do this after everything you've done for me. I read the message twice. After everything I've done. The irony hit like a slap. I replied with 2 words. Exactly that. Then I muted his number. 3 days passed. The debit alerts stopped. The insurance notices bounced back. Jaden missed a job interview because he had no ride. His suit, bought with a borrowed card, hung off him awkwardly, a size too big. He posted photos from graduation day, smiling without joy, posing next to his mother on a folding chair in a rented banquet hall. His real dad sent a card with $50 inside. No call, no presents, just a signature that looked more like a stamp than a name. And I didn't go. I didn't sit in the crowd, clapping for a boy who couldn't stand the sight of me. I didn't wave from the back or take a photo no one would share. While they ate cold pizza and paper cake, I made coffee and sat in the stillness of my new life. No voices yelling. No one asking me to pick up the slack, to cover the costs of contempt. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. That night, the knock came. It was late past midnight. The kind of hour that makes every sound feel urgent. I opened the door and there he was. Jaden. No attitude. No smirk. Just standing in the hallway of my building in that same ill-fitting suit, clutching a backpack like it held more than it ever could. "I didn't think you'd actually leave," he said. His voice cracked on the last word. Not out of pain. Out of disbelief. He had grown up in a world where my presence was permanent. A fact. A given. Like hot water and full fridges. Like tuition payments and car repairs. He'd never considered the possibility that I could vanish. And I had. Not from the planet. Just from the role. I didn't invite him in. I didn't ask where he was staying or how he got there or what he needed. Because the truth is, he didn't need me. He needed what I gave. He needed a sponsor. A safety net. A silent servant. But he never wanted a father. So I gave him the one thing he never asked for but desperately needed. Consequence. I looked him in the eye, then closed the door. Not out of vengeance. Out of clarity. He wasn't wrong to call me nothing. He was just foolish enough to think nothing could keep paying the bills. They held the ceremony without me. The photos showed a wrinkled suit, a lopsided graduation cap, and a rented hall dressed up to look more expensive than it was. Jaden stood between 2 balloon columns, holding a plaque he didn't earn on his own. His mother's smile looked brittle, like she was clenching her teeth just off camera. The caption read, "So proud of my boy. No tags. No mentions. Not of me." I saw the pictures on her Facebook. The only place I still existed was in the corners of the frame. My absence like negative space burned into the background. No chair saved for me. No nod to the man who bought the car that should have taken him there. Just cold pizza on plastic plates. A fake celebration for a family that had finally gotten what they claimed they wanted. Me gone. Good. Because that day, while they clapped and took blurry videos and waited for his name to be mispronounced, I was in my one-bedroom apartment. Shirt off. Feet up. A cup of black coffee in one hand. The morning sun warming my neck. No speeches. No performances. No one asking for one more thing. I listened to the hum of traffic, read 3 chapters of a book I'd started years ago and never had time to finish, and took a long nap without being needed. That was peace. Not joy. Not relief. Just peace. And it was enough. The calls came slower after that. Jaden's anger cooled into confusion. Confusion into silence. His mother didn't call that night. Or the next. I imagine they both thought I'd crawl back. That I just needed time. That guilt would bring me home the way it always had. But I'd stopped treating guilt like a leash. I didn't go back. Instead, I logged into every account I still had access to and tied off the loose ends. Jaden's name vanished from my autopay history. The insurance on his car, still technically in my name, was canceled. The phone line? Gone. I wiped the devices from the shared plan, reset the passwords, closed the loop. One by one, the tools of his freedom turned back into what they had always been, mine. He didn't reach out again until the job offer came. It was a corporate internship, one I helped him land through a friend of mine before things fell apart. He needed transportation, an address for paperwork, funds for clothes, money for the commute. The message was short. Hey, need to talk. Can we meet? No apology. No acknowledgement. Just need. It was always about need. I didn't reply, so he showed up. I heard his steps before I saw him. Too slow for confidence, too heavy for pride. I opened the door and found him standing there again. Not in a suit this time, just jeans and a hoodie. Hair messy, eyes sunken. He looked like a boy who had run out of people to blame. I messed up, he said, voice lower, thinner. I didn't speak. I didn't mean what I said. I was just pissed. I didn't think you'd actually leave. There it was again, that disbelief. That quiet, pathetic shock that someone finally treated his words like truth. I got the internship, he said. It's a big deal. I need a way to get there. They need proof of address. I don't even have a printer. His hands were in his pockets. His shoulders hunched. The bravado was gone. Just a boy with no ride. No plan. No backup. And suddenly, I was supposed to feel something. I didn't. He looked past me into the apartment, saw the empty walls, the second-hand furniture, the silence. It made him nervous. You look different, he said. I am. He waited for more. I gave him nothing. I'll pay you back, he said. I swear. I'll find a way. I looked at him, really looked. And all I saw was the reflection of my past generosity turned into present expectation. He wasn't asking for help. He was demanding a reset, a rewind, a return to the life where I did everything and he gave nothing. But I had learned. Love is not charity. And charity without gratitude is a kind of debt no man should carry. So I told him the truth. I'm not your father. He blinked. You told me that. Not in so many words, but often enough. I was the ATM. The guy staying with your mom. The one who didn't earn a seat at your ceremony. Remember? He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. I'm not angry. I'm just done. I've spent the last 5 years investing in a family that cashed out without telling me. I bought time, effort, care. And you all spent it like it was free. He looked down, said nothing. I stepped back and closed the door. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just slow enough for him to feel it. That was the last time I saw him in person. After that, it was all secondhand. Through friends. Through his mother's posts. Through whispers and updates I didn't ask for. The internship slipped through his fingers, no transport, no coordination, no support system. He blamed scheduling. Then blamed traffic. Then stopped talking about it. His college plans unraveled. The car sat parked in front of their house. Unused, uninsured. A monument to what he had thrown away. His part-time job dried up. And Greg, the real dad, the man whose name they all whispered like a talisman, reappeared long enough to promise help, then vanished just as quickly. Same story, different chapter. Nothing changed. Except me. I didn't go back. I didn't answer when his mother finally texted again. 3 weeks later. He's struggling. You made your point. Can't you just help him a little, at least finish what you started? That was the line that stuck. Finish what I started. As if I hadn't already given more than any man should. As if the failure to raise a grateful son was mine alone, and not the product of years of silent complicity. As if she hadn't watched him reject me, insult me, dismiss me, and still expected me to pick up the pieces. I didn't reply, because I had finished what I started. I had loved a boy like he was mine, and when he showed me again and again that I wasn't, I believed him. Letting go didn't feel like revenge. Felt like release. And I finally understood that you can't keep pouring into a cup that's been cracked from the start. You can't teach gratitude to someone who's been taught entitlement. You can't raise a son who doesn't see you as anything but a budget line on a spreadsheet. So I lived. I read more, cooked real meals, took long walks in the quiet, got a dog, an old rescue with 3 legs and a soft growl. He doesn't ask for much, but when I come home, he wags his tail like I matter. And maybe that's the point. Maybe we all just need to be seen, not for what we give, but for who we are. They never apologized. Not really. Not the way a man hopes, even secretly, to be apologized to. Not with eye contact and tears and the kind of words that ache when spoken. What came instead were fragments. Hints of regret passed through mutual friends, awkward pauses at family gatherings I no longer attended, and silence that carried just enough weight to imply they'd noticed my absence. But absence isn't grief. It's just empty space. Jaden never called, never showed up again. After the last door closed between us, he must have realized I wasn't bluffing. That the rope had finally been dropped. That I wasn't waiting on the other side of his next mistake with a checkbook and a tired smile. I imagine he thought I'd bend eventually. That I'd return out of guilt or loneliness or some obligation he never earned. But what he failed to understand, what they all failed to understand, is that I didn't leave because I stopped loving them. I left because they refused to love me back. And when love is one-sided, it rots. It sours into obligation, then resentment, then contempt. And that's what I'd become. A man resented for what he gave, and despised for what he expected in return. So I stopped giving. And the world, it turns out, kept spinning without me. Jaden's college dreams dissolved slowly. First, the internship disappeared. Then the part-time job. Then came the move back home. He blamed the economy. Bad luck. Maybe even me, though I stopped keeping tabs. His social media went quiet. The photos of late-night parties, expensive sneakers, hotel rooms paid for by someone else, they vanished. The smile in his captions dried up. What replaced it was silence. He learned, I think, what it meant to be alone. And his mother? She stopped calling 2 months after I left. The last message she sent me was a paragraph too long, full of everything but the one thing I needed to hear. I'm sorry I let them treat you like that. She never said it. Not once. Her text was filled with passive questions. How did it come to this? Wasn't there something we could have done differently? Don't you miss the way things used to be? I didn't respond, because I did miss the way things used to be, but only in theory, not in memory. The idea of family, of unity, of shared meals and Sunday mornings. I missed what I had imagined we could be, not what we were. What we were was this: a man carrying everyone else while being told he didn't belong. A woman who chose comfort over conflict. A boy who mistook generosity for weakness and thought blood meant immunity. And when I finally set that burden down, no one rushed to pick it up. So I moved on. I kept living in the one-bedroom above the hardware store for a year. Simple place. Wooden floors. One window. No one needed anything from me there. No footsteps overhead. No doors slamming. No voices asking where I'd been or what I'd paid for lately. I started waking up at 6. Not for work, but for myself. I walked to the diner down the block, ordered the same breakfast every morning. Eggs over easy. Black coffee. Dry toast. The waitress learned my name. Not because I tipped well, but because I listened when she spoke. And I got used to the quiet. I learned how to be alone without being lonely. There was a moment, maybe 6 months in, when I saw a father and son walking across the street. The boy was young, maybe 12. They were laughing, arms full of groceries. The father reached over and ruffled the boy's hair, and the boy didn't flinch. He leaned into it, and it hit me harder than I expected. Not envy, not anger, just the clean, sharp ache of knowing I'd tried. That I had offered that kind of love to someone who never wanted it. And that someone else somewhere was getting it right. And that was okay. Because I had been wrong for too long, wrong to stay, wrong to keep giving, wrong to believe that patience alone could turn contempt into gratitude. That belief had cost me years I wouldn't get back. But it had taught me something, too. It taught me the difference between being needed and being wanted. I had always been needed. For money, for structure, for support. But I had never once been wanted. Not for who I was, only for what I could offer. And when the offering stopped, so did their affection. That truth, as brutal as it is, became my freedom. Jaden is older now. I don't know where he works. I don't know if he went back to school, or if he still borrows money from the man he once claimed as real. I don't care. That's not cruelty, it's clarity. The same way you stop wondering about a fire once you've escaped the house. The same way you stop missing a lie once you know the truth. Because here's the truth. I did love him. Deeply. Honestly. I saw his flaws and still tried. I worked myself raw, shaped my life around his needs, bent my back so he'd have a bridge to walk across. But he didn't see the bridge. He saw a doormat. And when someone shows you that's all they see, you don't argue. You walk away. I walk now more than I ever did. Long walks, miles at a time, through the city, by the waterfront, past playgrounds and apartment complexes and the kinds of houses I once dreamed of owning. I don't envy them anymore. I don't want more than what I have. My time, my space, my peace. There's a new woman sometimes. We don't talk about the past. She asks about the books I read, the music I like. She doesn't need anything from me but presence. And I've learned that presence is enough. That the version of me who still needs to be seen doesn't have to perform. He just has to show up. I've thought about writing Jaden. Just once. Not to reopen anything. Not to offer a way back. But to tell him what he taught me. That love isn't a currency. That respect is earned in silence, not speeches. That the seat he denied me at his graduation was the clearest gift he ever gave, because it finally showed me the truth. I didn't belong. Not in their photos. Not in their future. Not in the story they told themselves about who mattered. And once I accepted that, I was free. So here I am. A man no longer giving. A man no longer begging to be called dad. A man who finally understands that walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom sharpened by pain. And now I ask you, was I wrong? Was I cruel? Or was I simply the first one to tell the truth out loud? That love cost something, and I was done paying the price.